Is this privately owned?
It's actually a public-private partnership in that the land here is owned by the town of Nantucket, the landfill. They financed and own the recycling center, which we operate. However, the composting facility we financed, we own on property that the town has leased to us for 25 years. So it's a combination of public-private cooperation. Waste Options is based in Warwick, Rhode Island, and Charlie and I are managing directors of the company, and we're focused on the northeastern part of the United States to offer options on handling waste, solid waste, and sewage sludge, as we're doing here. We have about 25 employees, but we also have a lot of support from, for example, Key Bank out of Portland, Maine, Stone & Webster out of Boston, Massachusetts, Secor Engineering. We had 25 visitors from Martha's Vineyard 2 weeks ago. Flew over in 3 chartered planes because they're faced now with the same situation that Nantucket was faced with several years ago before they initiated working with Waste Options and putting all this together. So they've got a problem. We're dealing with another community in Adams County, Pennsylvania. So we're looking generally in the Northeast, New York City. So there's a lot of places that we're pursuing now. Well, I'd say that the most exciting thing about this facility is that we are currently at around 90% recycling, which is the highest recycling rate, certainly in the Commonwealth and probably in the world. And that is a result of a combination of technologies that we've brought here, as well as talent, to be able to handle the entire waste stream. The entire waste stream meaning construction and demolition waste, tires, metal, all the recyclables, sofas, mattresses, chairs, as well as the organic material, which is now being composted in combination with the sewage sludge. Now from up here, we can view just about the entire operation, starting with the landfill. Now the landfill that we're right in the face of the landfill here has been operated here for well over 20 years. And when Waste Options was chosen and contracted with the town of Nantucket, I'm afraid this was a terrible, terrible mess. There were 20,000 seagulls, and we're down now to maybe a few hundred, which was a major accomplishment.
How did you get rid of them?
Well, basically, housekeeping, cleanliness, and finally, we started the composting plant up back in December, and that was really the food that they're after, because the waste that's coming from grocery stores and the organic material, which has been going into the landfill for the last 20 years, now is going into the composter, so there's basically no food for them. So now that there's no food, they've had to go elsewhere, and I guess they've gone to Hyannis and Martha's Vineyard because they're certainly not here.
We're not getting any cans, we're getting aluminum.
Aluminum, right.
Yeah.
Once in a while a piece of metal comes through.
Once in a while.
When you guys took it over, who was running it? The town was?
The town was running it. Mm-hmm. The town was running it. And the town was running it, and the state of Massachusetts, the Department of Environmental Protection said, Nantucket, you've got to close the landfill, as does most other communities in the state of Massachusetts. That meant that the town and island of Nantucket was faced with taking off the island close to 50,000 tons per year of material on Steamship Authority ships at a cost probably now approaching $200 a ton. The town is saving millions upon millions upon millions of dollars because of this facility that's been installed here. And the state agreed to allow this landfill to stay open on the assumption and the agreement, which is now taking place, that A, we would put a compost plant in to take the organic waste, and B, we would be mining this landfill, which is going to happen starting next year. For every ton of residue, and there still will be residue to go in the landfill, that's put into a new landfill, which will be constructed this spring, there'll be 1 ton of material taken out of the old landfill. So over the term of our contract, which is 25 years, we'll be mining this landfill and bringing it down.
What do you do when you mine Are we talking about this big hill here?
We're talking about this big hill here, which is still being used, but will be closed this year, and a new landfill open only for residue, which is going to be only sheet plastic, which has no value. So what does it mean? It means that we'll be going in with the kind of construction equipment that you see around here now, digging a certain area, digging it up, and running it through the composter, because all the organic material that's been buried here over the years is still there. You can dig down there and still find a hot dog or read the newspaper from 10 years ago. Those materials, which are organic, will become soil, and then we'll run it through the composter, so that we'll be, over a period of time, lowering this landfill.
How much lower will it be eventually after you mine something like that?
Well, it won't go away completely, because the size of the composting facility would not allow us to, take it all the way down. I'm going to guess that we could probably bring it down 1/3, 30%.
How does this corporation make money then?
Well, we have a long-term 25-year agreement with the town of Nantucket, and we're paid contractually by them to take all the waste and process it. And the amount that we're paid by Nantucket allows us to, pay all the people here, as well as pay the debt service, the bank debt service on the composting plant, and pay for that operation, and hopefully make a little profit. Well, when we came here, we discovered that it was close to 45 acres. However, we have done an enormous amount of work cleaning up the perimeter of the landfill and bringing it down to something like 22 acres. I mean, in that process, we discovered 250,000 old tires that had been here for years, as well as waste that was in places that no one expected. So we have actually tidied up the landfill, have established the boundaries, if you will, of it, and you'll notice on the sides now there's white plastic, which is the preparation that's being made to close this permanently, other than the mining that we'll be doing starting next year.
Where's the next hill going to be? Can you point it out to us?
Well, actually down in that location, we're going to be building what we call a bale fill, which will only be taking residue, which right now is about 10% of everything that comes into the overall facility, and it's predominantly sheet plastic bags, which right now is the only residue we have. We're recycling just about everything else.
How bad is plastic for the environment, in your opinion?
Well, it's certainly unsightly, because a lot of what you see blowing around is plastic. It does not biodegrade, at least, in our lifetime. It might over 1,000 years. So it's kind of an annoyance, and it takes up room. One of the interesting ideas that the town is looking at is going to biodegradable bags. The jury is still out as to whether they'll do that. That certainly would reduce the amount of plastic that goes into the landfill. But plastic itself is not necessarily that polluting, as is the organic material, because these landfills are built like bathtubs, so that they're to contain the organic material. And the organic material is what rots and creates methane, leachate in the water, contaminates our water supply, as well as creating gas. Now, you can notice here these little towers that you see on the top of the landfill here are gas vents, where there's a pipe that's been driven down 70 feet to collect then the gas that's generated, the methane, and it comes up through those pipes and is burned off with a gas, a flame that's, it's like a perpetual flame at each of these locations. That kind of thing is eliminated when you take the organics out of the waste stream before it goes into a landfill. Very sensible. And the organic material, which came from the soil, and either made trees that we make paper out of or made the food that we eat, is then recycled back into soil. The other traditional recyclables are also aluminum back to make more aluminum, or tin to tin, or plastic, paper and cardboard back to be reprocessed into those products too.
Does it affect the water quality?
Well, it certainly can. I'm not going to, I'm not going to state that it has affected the water quality here. But you know, the leachate, which is, you know, the water supply is contaminated by organic material, which when rainwater goes through here, it can contaminate. I don't think that's the case here, but it could. The new way of doing the landfill, which is now, you know, the law, if you will, across the country, but particularly here in Massachusetts, is that you basically put down layers of clay and impervious plastic liners so that the material that then is deposited into that landfill, when water goes through it, rain goes through it, it won't leach out, so that you're really making a bathtub, if you will, or a container for that waste that's going in. And that, of course, is the requirement for our new double-line landfill, which is going to be going over here. But the added bonus to that landfill is that we're not going to be putting organic material in it. We're only going to be putting non-organic material. So it's a super safe landfill. This landfill that we're sitting on top of right now is an older landfill. It was built before those regulations were in place, and it's unlined. So that the concept of going back in and taking material out and reprocessing it either into compost or other recyclables will be a great benefit.
Do you strip mine it? Is that how you do it?
Well, you'll do it from the top. Yeah, you'll dig it,
Yeah.
put it into a truck. The truck will go down and run it through the rotary composting digester and through that process, which will probably take 70–80% at least of that material and turn it back into soil.
And where will you put that soil?
Well, we'll be marketing it here because
really?
that material has good nutrient level. I mean, it's a potting soil. It's a soil enricher, has a great nutrient. It makes all kinds of things grow. We've done a lot of studies, so it'll be marketed from this location.
Will you sell it to around any? You'll sell it.
We will sell it. We'll sell it, and the town and Waste Options will share in the revenues from the sales.
What about hazardous waste? I mean, there's got to be. I mean, you always get somebody who throws hazardous waste, you know, into the dump.
Well, that's a good question. Today, what many people call household hazardous waste are primarily chlorinated hydrocarbons. You know, Drano or, you know, drain cleaner or paint thinner, or any of those kinds of things are organic. And interestingly enough, if you run those through an aggressive composting regime, where you're talking about billions of microbes per gram, that material is neutralized. The microbes actually eat that material if it's in the waste stream, but the amount that is delivered here is minuscule. The town does have a household hazardous waste program where materials are brought in at specified, you know, days throughout the year. So a great deal of that is removed from the waste stream, but the amount that's delivered here is so minor that it's not an issue as far as affecting the quality of the compost or that sort of thing. I got involved in the waste business right out of college, initially building wastewater treatment plants, incinerators and that sort of thing. About in 1983, I was privileged to meet a man by the name of Eric Avison, who had over a 4-decade period, he was in his late 80s then, developed the composting technology that's now being used here. So I get very interested in what he had to say, and actually formed a company with him to then market the Avison composting technology, as we call it. So I've been involved in the composting part of this business for, golly, 16, 17 years now. And through my efforts, I've been involved with the development of 10 composting plants. This is the 10th. Not only here in the United States, where there's 6, but also one in Australia, one in Sweden, and one in Canada. And our first successful project was one that we developed for the city of Marlborough, Massachusetts. That facility is currently operating. And then this past year, I left my previous company, which owned the technology, and joined Waste Options as marketing manager or developing new projects, and we're now pursuing a number of projects around the northeastern United States. This is part of the process that's now undergoing for the final closure of the landfill. And the plastic is basically so that, number one, water will not go through that plastic liner and then leach into the material and then create a problem underneath, number one. Number two, by putting that plastic there, it then channels, if you will, the gas to the gas vents where we can burn it off safely, rather than have it coming up through the area there. Now, this liner is the first phase of the slope closure. We will also be putting a mixture of loam, soil, sand, cushion on top of that, and then later this spring we'll be planting the entire hill with grass as well as flowers, so that hopefully come May it's going to be a nice, visually very beautiful.
You've got to mine it first, though, is that right?
No, we're going to close it first,
yeah,
and then in the winter months, when the population is down here on the island, then we have the capacity to take material, mine it in the landfill. So we'll be doing the mining over 25 years, but basically in the winter off months.
I see.
Because during the summer, of course, the population swells to close to 60,000 out here, which means that the waste coming in on a daily basis is a great deal more in July and August than it is right now. So in July and August, we have full capacity to take all the waste and process it, but in the winter months, we have excess capacity because the population's down and the waste is down. It's at that point that we'll be mining the landfill and running it through the composter.